Sejam muito bem-vindos ao videocast especial do Instituto Ludwig von Mises Brasil, a terceira conferência de escola austríaca realizada em São Paulo. Hoje nós vamos entrevistar o professor Walter Block, PhD em Economia pela Universidade de Colômbia e atualmente é professor na Universidade de Loyola, em New Orleans. O professor Walter Block é autor, editor e coeditor de muitos livros, entre eles Defendendo o Indefensável, Rent Control, Myths and Realities, Discrimination, Affirmative Action and Equal Opportunity, Theology, Third World Development and Economic Justice, The Privatization of Roads and Highways, Religions, Economics and Social Thought, and Economic Freedom Toward a Theory of Measurement. O Dr. Block também escreveu mais de 500 artigos acadêmicos e contribui para publicações como The Review of Austrian Economics, Journal of Libertarian Studies, The Journal of Labor Economics, Cultural Dynamics e Quarterly Journal of Austrian Economics. Para entrevistar o professor Walter Block, eu conto aqui com a presença de Roberto Chioca e de Fernando Chioca, ambos diretores do Instituto Ludwig von Mises Brasil. Professor Block, thank you for coming. Welcome to Brazil. Very appreciate. A primeira pergunta será realizada pelo Roberto Chioca. Quem passa a palavra, Roberto.
Obrigado, Bruno. Professor Block, I'll start with the toughest question, I think. I don't know. According to you, in the book Defending the Defendable, in the introduction, you define libertarianism, and you say that the basic premise of this theory is that it's illegitimate to practice aggression against non-aggressors. Knowing this, how can isn't this a mistake for minarchists to consider themselves libertarians?
That's a very rough question. I would say, strictly speaking, you're right. If you define libertarianism very strictly and very narrowly, because a minarchist or a minimal government libertarian is someone who believes in minimal government. So now you have to ask, does government violate the non-aggression principle? And the answer is yes. They do violate the non-aggression principle. They tax people. Taxes are not voluntary payments. Taxes are not like club dues, like when you join the golf club or the tennis club. You have to pay dues, otherwise they won't let you in the club. Fine. But you agree to go in the tennis club or the golf club and you agree to pay dues. Who agreed to be part of this club called Brazil, or this club called the United States, or this club called Spain? Nobody agreed. There's no contract. Whereas when you join the golf club and the tennis club, there's a written contract. You have to pay so much to get in, then you have to pay so much per month, and they have to provide certain services for you. It's a contract. There's no contract to join the country. And yet there were people here before the country started. There had to be people here before the country started. You can't have a country with no people. You have to have people first. So before the country was started, there were people around. And now all of a sudden the government started and they said, you're part of the country, whether you like it or not. Why? Why should he be part of the country? Suppose he says, well, I wish you luck. I wish you luck with this country, Brazil, or this club, Brazil, and I'll be your friend and I'll trade with you. I just don't want to join. I don't like to join. They would say, too bad. You have to join. You don't join, we're going to shoot you. That's not voluntary. So strictly speaking, a libertarian has to be anarcho-capitalist. However, most people who call themselves libertarians, and I think correctly, but not exactly, are minimal government libertarians. They think government should be very, very small. It should be limited to one thing, namely promoting the libertarian non-aggression principle. And to that end, we need police to keep local criminals from us. We need armies to keep foreign criminals away from us. And then we need courts to determine who the criminal is and who the victim is. And that's it. And that would be minimal government libertarianism. And most libertarians are like that. Not fully logically consistent, but that's the way the word is used. Then there are classical liberals like Milton Friedman and Hayek, who in addition to these three functions add on a whole bunch of others, but still minimal compared to the socialists. And we call them classical liberals. And that's the way I see the sort of a three-part distinction: anarcho-capitalists, libertarians, and classical liberals or free enterprise advocates.
Where do you put Mises on that? Because Mises defend the government, the minimal government, but he also defended the secession to the individual level. Where do you put Mises on this?
That's another very vicious question. What kind of questions are you people asking me here?
We brought you to Brazil to pressure you.
Well, you're doing a good job. Mises is usually interpreted as a minimal government libertarian because he favored the government. However, if you favor the full right of secession, or not to join, and by secession, I don't mean you can leave the country. I don't mean you can exit the country. I mean you stay right where you are and you say, I'm no longer part of the government. And you don't want me on your streets? Fine. I'll just stay here. I'll be a hermit in my little farm. I'll be self-sufficient. So Mises is really inconsistent. On the one hand, he's an anarchist because the full right of secession without leaving is roughly what anarchism is. I mean, most people think anarchism, you're throwing bombs. The people who throw bombs are governments. They're the ones who are throwing drones and atomic bombs and snipers now from a half a mile away, they shoot you with a rifle. Governments are the mass killers, not individuals. Thank you. So I think Mises is a little inconsistent here. The part that says you can secede fully is anarchist. The part that says we should have a government and you should pay taxes is not. So he was a little inconsistent here. But he was magnificent. I love Mises. But he was an imperfect human being. Nobody is perfect. I'm sure I've made mistakes. I'm not sure which ones they are. But I know I've made mistakes, and I'm open to correction. And I think Mises made a mistake there.
Professor, in your first speech, you're talking about the voluntary slavery. And in your second speech, you're talking about voluntary socialism. I would like to ask you, is voluntary socialism a form of voluntary slavery?
Well, let me talk about each one separately and then see if they're the same. What I meant by voluntary slavery, and this is very different than the usual slavery. The usual slavery is coercive slavery, where you grab someone, you capture them, and you beat them up, and you hit them, and then they're a slave. You capture them. By voluntary slavery, the example I gave is my son. God forbid he has a horrible illness, and it'll cost $5 million to cure him. And I don't have $5 million. You want me to be your slave. You've long wanted me to be your slave, and you're very rich. So you give me $5 million, I give it to my son's doctors, they cure him, and now I'm your slave. And I benefit because I value his life more than my freedom. You benefit because you value my capture or my use of me as a slave more than $5 million. So like every voluntary contract, we both gain in the ex ante sense, in the sense of expectations. So that's voluntary slavery. Should such a contract be valid? I don't see why not. Seems reasonable to me. It seems compatible with libertarianism. Because libertarianism says you can't use violence against non-aggressors without their permission. Look, when you get in a boxing ring and I hit you in the jaw, you can't say that's assault and battery because you've agreed to be hit above the belt, and if you hit me, I can't sue you and say, oh, he hit me, call the police. We've agreed. Or voluntary sadomasochism where people beat each other with a whip for sexual benefit. As long as they're adults, it's not a crime. Children, very different. So that's voluntary slavery. Now, what I mean by voluntary socialism, you see there are two definitions of socialism. One is the government owns the means of production. That's the economic definition. That's not what I meant by voluntary socialism. What I meant, the other definition of socialism is from each according to his ability, to each according to his need. So we take from the rich and give to the poor. Now, if this is voluntary, it's fine. If it's coercive, if you're compelled to do it, then it's not so fine. And I said, like in the kibbutz or the commune or the monastery, that's the way they live. They all share equally. And in the family, the little girl of 5 years old doesn't eat food in accordance with her ability to earn income. She eats food in accordance with her need. And the father also goes to work and gives to the little girl. So if that's socialism and it's voluntary, then it's also compatible with libertarianism. So is voluntary socialism the same as voluntary slavery? No. But they're both compatible with libertarianism, as is wristwatches and ties. I mean, everything is compatible with libertarianism as long as it's between voluntary consenting adults.
Just to make this very clear, shouldn't all contracts have a way out? So if you can choose between being in that arrangement or not, so you're not a slave because you have the option to opt out.
Well, you could have two kinds of contracts. You could have one where you can opt out and one where you can't opt out. Now look, if I say, give me $5 million to give to my son's doctors to save my son, and I can opt out any time, he's not likely to give me the $5 million. He might give me $100,000, which isn't enough to save my son. In order to save my son, I have to say, well, I won't opt out. Now, there is such a thing called specific performance contracts. I'm getting married, I hire you, you're a singer, come sing at my wedding. And at the last minute, you say, either you have a sore throat or you just say, I have a better offer somewhere else. Now, there could be two kinds of contracts. One, a specific performance contract where you have to come. And if you don't come, I can come and shoot you. Now I'm going to pay you a lot of money. The other contract is I promise you, if you don't, I'm out of luck. A third one is you post a bond. You post a bond for $10,000 or 20,000 reals, and if you don't show up, I keep the money. So you could have different kinds of contracts, and one of them could be no change. Look, when I bought this watch, I can't go back and say, hey, I don't really like the watch, give me my money back. It's for keeps. So you can have contracts like that. Any contract where you have a meeting of the minds, I think, is a legitimate contract. Well, there are exceptions, like a murder contract. If I hire you to kill him, that's not a valid contract, but that's coercion. But apart from that, any contract, whatever the specifics are, would be compatible with libertarian law.
If I give you my life, I say, I sell you my life for $5,000, and then I say you can kill me tomorrow, and then came tomorrow and I say to you, I changed my mind, I don't want you to kill me anymore. Do you think you can kill me by libertarian law, or do you think I can be sued by a contract break and you not kill me by libertarian law?
Well, I think it depends on the specific contract. Presumably the contract would anticipate this, and if the contract anticipated this, we would live up to the contract. Look, in boxing, I get in a boxing match with him and he's beating me up. All I have to do is touch my knee to the floor, and it's over. He can't
Or
hit
throw
me.
the towel.
Or throw in the towel. So boxing is a contract to hit, but you can stop. Throw in the towel or you touch your knee to the floor, he can't hit me. If he hits me, then he is guilty of assault and battery. In the Roman gladiator, you couldn't touch your knee. There was no towel, but that was not voluntary. They were forced to fight. But if it was voluntary, then you have to go by the contract. I mean, a contract is very important. There are things more important than a contract, which is why I'm against, fractional reserve banking, even if it's voluntary, because there are more important things than contract. One of them is property rights. So let me get on fractional reserve banking, even though nobody asked me about it, but that's another issue that's very pressure. You're into pressure. So, see, right now, there are, let's say, 5 million cars in Sao Paulo. I don't know how many, but let's assume 5 million. And there are also titles to 5 million cars. Now, suppose I print up another title to a car, but I don't have a car. I just print up a title, and I start selling it to people. That's fraud, even if it's agreed upon. Because property rights are more important than contract. Contract is very important, as I've been telling you about voluntary slavery contracts. Another specific performance contract is I'm going to go on a high wire. What do you call it? You balance with a stick. You walk on a wire.
Corda bamba.
And I'm doing it 50 feet in the air, and I hire you to hold the net under me. And you say, I'm busy. And he's my friend, and he says, you get there with the net, or I'll shoot you. Namely, he's going to compel you to keep up to your contract to hold the net there. He's within his rights. Or a lifeguard. Somebody hires me to be a lifeguard, and now this guy is drowning, and I say, well, I have an obligation to go and rescue him because I was paid to be the lifeguard. Otherwise, I mean, if I weren't paid and there was someone drowning, it would be nice if I jumped in or threw him a stick or something, or a life preserver. But if I don't, I'm not a murderer, because libertarians don't believe in positive obligations. We only believe in negative obligations. Namely, you have an obligation to keep your mitts off of other people and their property. And that's all you are obliged to do. It would be nice if you would save people, if you would hold nets under tightrope walkers and things like that.
Professor, allow me to repeat a last quote of your second speech made by a Brazilian student called Paulo. He asked you, quote, if there are no market failures, market could provide us with protection service such as policy and military defense, which people evaluate. It could provide us with protection against coercion in general. If so, why couldn't the markets protect us against state coercion? Is government a market fail? End of quote.
This is a very nasty question. This student should be kicked out for being insolent. He has no respect. He's supposed to agree with what the professor says, not supposed to question. I'm just kidding. This is a brilliant question, a very important question. In economics, it's a specialized language. And in economics, what market failure means is not that people are imperfect. We're all imperfect. Everybody agrees that there's market failure in that sense. None of us is perfect. We all make mistakes. But what market failure means in the profession of economics is not that people are likely to make mistakes, but that monopoly, externalities, public goods, asymmetric information, a lack of perfect competition, there's a whole bunch of them, and they're very specific and narrow things. So the question is, why, if there's no market failure, didn't the market protect us against government? Because government certainly is a failure from the libertarian point of view, because they use coercion against innocent people. And my answer was, it's not the market's fault. The market is just commercial interaction. And rather, it's people's fault. You ask the next 100 people walking down the street here, do you like the government? 99, well, maybe not because of this conference, but somewhere else, 99 will say, yes, the government is, it's not perfect, I wish this candidate had won, but we have to have government, because if we didn't have government, people would be at each other's throats. My claim, so the question is, why are they like that? And my answer is, they're biologically disposed in that direction. They're hardwired to be statists. This comes from sociobiology. Sociobiology is the theory that we are the way we are based upon what it took to live a million years ago when we were in caves or in trees or wherever our species was. And the example I gave was the bathtub and the snake. I said, how many people are afraid of snakes? And everybody's afraid of a snake. How many people are afraid of bathtubs? Nobody's afraid of a bathtub. And yet a bathtub nowadays kills more people than a snake. So why are we still afraid of bathtubs? Why are we still afraid of snakes? Because we're biologically hardwired. Because a million years ago, if you weren't afraid of a snake, you didn't leave too many children. And if you were afraid of a snake, it had survival value and you left children. And we are the children of people who were afraid of snakes, not the ones who were afraid of bathtubs. Okay, when we lived in those days, we were very hardwired for benevolence. In our tribe, I get sick this week, you help me. Next week you get sick, I help you. Our tribe survives. Your tribe, you get sick this week, he doesn't help you. Next week, he gets sick and you're not around to help him, your tribe dies. So we all are descended from people who had benevolence deeply embedded in them, in their hardwiring, in their biology. Do we have appreciation for free enterprise in our bodies? No. Because a million years ago, just like fear of bathtubs didn't help you, favoring free enterprise didn't help you a million years ago. There was no free enterprise a million years ago. So the reason that we are inclined towards statism and protectionism and all the economic fallacies that we have is due to biology. So I'm sort of a pessimist as to whether we're going to really have freedom. A previous speaker at this conference gave the case for optimism. The internet will make us free. I don't think so. I think that we have a long way to go. Maybe in a million years the biology will change. I don't know, but it's going to take a while. But it really doesn't matter to me, because I'm going to do the same thing whether the case for optimism or the case for pessimism is true. Then I'm going to try to promote liberty and understand liberty as a professor.
This tribe, cavemen that evolved, survived through the evolution, wasn't then more pro-charity than, because government is not benevolence. If it was like that, it would be in a charity world or a perfect communist, or I don't know if that can exist, but just not beating each other, but respecting and helping and cooperating. That's capitalism, that's not socialism.
It's good to have good criticism. We don't want to have just weak criticism. If the theory is true, it has to withstand good criticisms. I have two answers for you. One, maybe the government isn't benevolent, but the government sells itself as benevolent. It says, look, what we're going to do is take money from the rich and give to the poor. It's one of the main things. The other thing is we're going to keep foreign enemies from you, and we're going to keep domestic bad guys, criminals from you. So they sell themselves as benevolent. Secondly, the other thing that we're hardwired for is not just benevolence, but following a leader. When we were a tribe of 50 people, it probably had some survival value to have a leader. We naturally gravitate toward leaders. People get eloquent, demagogues, the politicians. All the politicians look very good. They're very tall. Like in the U.S. election now, Mitt Romney is a beautiful man. I mean, he looks like a movie star. He looks like a president. Whereas poor Ron Paul doesn't look like a president.
He just has good ideas.
He has great ideas, but he's old, he's thinner, his eyebrows aren't good, his suits aren't good. Whereas Mitt Romney and all the other guys, the ones who stopped, they're very tall, good-looking people. I don't know what it is in Brazil, in South America, but...
Not Gingrich. Not Gingrich.
No, Gingrich is an exception, but Gingrich had a certain personality also, even though he wasn't physically beautiful, but he had a presence.
Sarah Palin.
Sarah Palin. A lot of women she is a beautiful woman. Wired for, other than just benevolence, it's also maybe leadership. So people are hardwired for lots of things, not just fear of snakes. Another thing they're hardwired for, interesting, a lot of women actresses, they become 45 years old, and no longer can they get the sex roles. Now they have to be the mother, and they don't like it, because when they were 30 or 20, they were the sexy roles. Well, there were two tribes. One tribe, that's our tribe, when you see a 22-year-old girl, everybody says, oh, great, let me get her. That's our tribe, and we survived. But suppose there was another tribe, and they see a 55-year-old woman, beautiful 50, like Sarah Palin, and they say, oh, let's get her. And they see a 22-year-old girl and say, oh, not ripe. Who's going to survive? The ones that look for the 22-year-old girl, not the 55-year-old woman. So we're hardwired in many, many different ways. Like another example I gave is a baby cries, we get worried. We want to help the baby. If you didn't worry about babies, you wouldn't survive. So sociobiology is a very complicated thing, and it's not only benevolence, it's many other things that lead to statism, some of which lead to statism. And as well, the state is very smart as selling themselves as benevolent. So that would be my answer to your very, very good question.
Well, thank you very much, Professor.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on your show.
Thank you.